name's Geist, and I want to talk about the state of homelessness and poverty in Lake County, as that's what I focused on in my CEP as well as the years prior to my CEP. In 2010, I founded a ministry called the Midnight Slaves, in which I would take a group of people to the streets of St. Louis, and we would hand out food, water, hot chocolate, blankets, hand and toe warmers, and other specific resources to the people in need there. Just last winter, I brought the Midnight Slaves to Lake County, or Waukegan specifically. And so when it came time to find a site for my CEP, I worked with an already established connection that I had with another organization, the Christian Outreach of Lutherans, or Ministries, to provide aid to homeless people as well as families in need of food. Now, I could stand here and explain the problem, but perhaps these pictures tell the story better than I possibly could. Now, these pictures are the homes of several people in Waukegan who call a small plot of land their home. They live in tents year-round, through the rain, through the heat waves, through the blizzards. In Waukegan, there's dozens of people who spend their days outside, and they call themselves homeless, but they somehow manage to get off the streets just in time for winter. But the people who live in these tents here are not those people. These are the people who have no resources. Rarely do they have people that they can call in favors when they need shelter. And when winter hits, they don't have anywhere to turn to. So if you want me to explain the entirety of the problem in a word, it's this: poverty. While you and I stay in a temperature-regulated home, there's people outside who suffer through every storm because they have nowhere to turn to. Many people are homeless for reasons outside of their control and are in need of food and shelter, but there's a massive shortage of resources for the people. Even worse, the general public is more likely to take things away from these people than they are to help them, but I'll get to that later. The most unskilled workers have been driven out of jobs because machines can now do what they once did. Think of all those workers who used to work on conveyor belts, putting one screw into something at a time. Machines do that now, and jobs are scarce for people who bring very few skills or education to the table. Now, those workers then become homeless because they can't find jobs, and most of them eventually get arrested for being homeless. Now, usually the actual arrest isn't, for being homeless, it's for a term like trespassing, as many homeless people just set up a tent in the woods only to find out later that someone actually owns that property. Now, when these arrests happen, not only do these people get criminal records, really, but they lose their belongings in the process. One woman that I met through the Midnight Slaves was Jackie. And it was about an hour before sundown when she was approached by some officers, and they told her, "You have 1 hour to get out of here." Jackie told them, there's no way that I can get my tent and all my stuff out of here in time, and that she didn't even know she was on forest preserve property, which she apparently was. She told them, "If you just give me a couple of days, I can be out of here and there won't be any problem." The officer said that that was not acceptable, and that they were going to come back in 1 hour, and if she was still there, she would be arrested, and anything that was left there was going to be thrown out regardless. Now, Jackie's not alone. I know other homeless people that this very thing has happened to. Now, in Jackie's particular case, she didn't get arrested, mainly because she was able to call me and I was able to help her out of the situation, but in most cases, there isn't anyone to help these people. Now, this becomes a problem later because when that person applies to find a job down the road, well, they now have a criminal record, and we all know how much that hurts when you're trying to find a job. There are severe social implications with this problem as well. For starters, it causes an increase in crime. Now, this happens in part because most homeless people have very few obligations in life, and similar to idle teenagers who join gangs just to have something to do, these homeless people get themselves in trouble because they're not being kept busy. And even when that's not the case, many homeless people who are hungry feel that they have no other option but to steal food in order to avoid starving themselves. This causes social concern, and police start getting involved, and eventually all homeless people are treated like criminals. For those that do want to help homeless people, the resources are scarce, and there's simply not enough workers to help the increasing number of homeless people. Now, as discussed, this has a huge impact on the homeless person as an individual. First of all, they're much more likely to have a criminal record after being homeless. Additionally, because many people see homeless people as less than human, The typical homeless person will start believing that they're worthless, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Many of the homeless people stop looking for jobs altogether, and those who will still continue to try and find work aren't able to do so often. Eventually, this cycle of being homeless can often kill the homeless person. I'm talking literally kill them, if not from malnutrition, then from not having proper shelter to protect themselves from the elements of the seasons. If you lived in this tent, and this was all you had, where would you go in a snowstorm? Where would you go when the temperature dropped to the negatives? Where would you go if a thunderstorm was knocking down trees around you? And where would you go if your tent was flooded? Cool Ministries tries tackling this problem. The mission of the Christian outreach of Lutherans is to give comprehensive assistance to families in need by reducing hunger and homelessness while encouraging personal growth and self-sufficiency. Now, in order to achieve this, Cool withholds judgment of people. If someone tells them that they're homeless, then they believe them. They don't ask questions. Cool likes to work with pads for emergency situations where shelter's needed, like the snowstorm example I just gave. Now, generally speaking, when the weather's bad, everyone flocks to pads, and eventually there's no room, and people are left out in the storm. Jackie also had this happen to her, where a snowstorm hit and pads didn't have any room for her, and her tent ended up collapsing. She had nowhere to sleep. Again, she was able to call me up, and I was able to get to church that I go to provide 2 nights at a motel for her. But again, most homeless people don't have these kinds of resources. As far as Cool goes, specifically, they like to take families on a case-by-case basis and provide shelter and food for them for 2 years, while assisting the leaders or the heads of the household to find jobs and be able to live on their own. In 2012, Cool provided enough meals to feed just under 60,000 people, but the need is increasing, and they'd like to expand from that. Also in 2012, Cool provided shelter and one-on-one job assistance for just under a dozen families. But again, they want more space so that they can take in more families. Now Jackie, she was eventually admitted to Cool's family housing program. And she is typical of most homeless people. She has very few skills. And the skills she does have are mainly industrial warehouse job skills. Jobs that have been taken over by machines. She doesn't own a car, so her job search is limited to just a few miles radius. She doesn't have a GED, and she doesn't have any money to get a GED, so she's stuck searching for the kind of job she had in the 1990s, which by and large doesn't exist anymore. Jackie and I worked together about a month ago to create a resume for her, but she still hasn't had any success finding a job, let alone landing an interview. Now Jackie has less than 2 years to find a job and create stability for her life, or she'll find herself out on the streets again, as Cool is going to need to move on and try to assist someone new. For someone like Jackie, the future really looks bleak, but her situation is not uncommon. Now this problem is only going to get worse. Machines are going to continue to take over the work industry. Even worse, baby boomers are going to retire soon, and they're going to need financial support from the younger generations, which requires a lot of manpower, but a significant portion of that manpower is either unemployed or in prison. Now the economy is still down, as is the house market, leading to foreclosures and homelessness. In fact, there's more foreclosed homes than there are homeless people, if you can believe that. It used to be that an associate's degree would nearly guarantee you a job. It's not like that anymore. A high school graduate is equivalent to a dropout. A bachelor level is essentially an associate's, and a doctoral degree is pretty much the only thing that can ensure a job anymore. Master's level and below has become so saturated with people that care more about getting a job than they care about getting an education, and that mindset is gradually seeping into the doctoral level as well. Now, taking a cue from Cool Ministries, the reality is that this issue can't be tackled all at one time. Instead, people need to be taken care of and assisted on an individual basis, as Cool has proved is an effective way to start. One person is one hope, and that needs to be the focus, just one person at a time. Now there's dozens of homeless people that need a shelter in Waukegan alone, but they can only get into Cool one at a time. There's not enough shelter and not enough manpower. Therefore, those focused on helping those in poverty have to empower those in need, not just give them money. Another homeless man that I met through the Midnight Slaves once admitted to me that he gets about $1,000 every month for some Social Security or disability compensation from the government, and he blows the entire paycheck on liquor the night he receives it. I mean, when I was first married, $1,000 was my rent and my groceries for the month. So if the government doesn't start increasing programs to help people, then my personal suspicion, based on these statistics I've just rattled off, is that we're going to be in another recession in about 10 years, if not a complete depression that rivals the financial troubles from the 1930s. Here are my references in case you want to check anything that I was referring to earlier. Again, I am Geist, and I am trying to advocate for the end of homelessness, one person at a time. Thank you.